This is episode 4 on Crafted Generations. My guest is Luke Athanas. And I met Luke with my dad and his dad doing business, and they've known each other from years ago. And Luke has been doing this for about 11, 12 years.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to let him share a little bit about his background, his career, and his experience within the industry.
Okay. Yeah, for starters, I'd say I don't know exactly how long, but it's approaching the 35 year mark where my dad started working for your dad. Um, and he was, I can't exactly remember how long he was working under your dad's company and eventually rented out some space from him. Your dad had a big warehouse at the time, had an empty location in the back, and my dad was doing side work there. Him and his brother, I believe they were both doing it at the same time. They eventually started their own business, and uh, that is about 27 years ago today. Yep. So for my dad being the my biggest inspiration and really helped shape who I am today, a lot of it actually is tied together to you, like I said, without you really even knowing. My
Yeah.
dad's and your dad's relationship goes back 30 years or more. And so their respect is mutual between them, and they have over the years either shared projects with each other as they're uh, too busy or too complex. Um, and for me, when I started I was 15 is when first started with him, and it was working the summers after school. I started out as a helper, and really just would consist of a lot of absorbing a lot of knowledge more than anything, but thinking ahead for whomever I was working with at the time. Now, I learned from a number of different people, but most of all would be from my dad. And when we, as, as a helper, one of the most important lessons that he tried to instill in me was that you need to be the best helper you can be, because if you think ahead for whomever you're with and you're helping speed up their process, you're helping the project get, let's say, either produced or installed more efficiently, that's really where your value's at. But when I first started, it consisted of a lot of sweeping, a lot of handing screws, holding tape measures, unloading, loading, and it was frustrating. And I felt like this might not be for me because I didn't appreciate the value of a quality helper and how important it is when you are working as a team to have equal collaboration,
Hmm.
and not just have to hold up the workload for both guys, or both employees, and that for that sake. When I when I was when I was younger, I was given a handful of materials parts really that were for a birdhouse. And that was the very first thing I would say that drew me into creating something out of nothing, because I didn't know what it was supposed to look like, but there were markings of how to assemble it, and it was something my dad made for me to assemble. Um, it really unlocked the ability to work with my hands, because as a teenager, I took apart computers, I took apart or not motorcycles, bicycles, skateboards, um, and I experimented with really whatever opportunity I could. I tried to take advantage and experiment with it because it brought a lot of joy, and the the value of having somebody like a helper, it helps shape how you how you see the industry, how you approach, let's say, what direction you want to take in the industry. And it is so valuable because you have you have to think ahead, and you have to know every step, even if you don't have the experience of, let's say, assembling or installing. You absorb, and the more that you absorb, the more that you uh, engage in whatever the project is, whatever it calls of you, it becomes natural to you. And that's where my experience is over the last almost 12 years now. Is it's a lot of repetition, and the more you repeat, uh, the more you're either learning the right way to do things or how not to do it, because you are seeing, it could even be seeing somebody else's mistake before they make it, and that doesn't come naturally in most cases. And it takes time to recognize, you know right before somebody's using an inch and a half screw as opposed to an inch and a quarter, and the difference could mean going through your countertop, or popping through a door or a fixed panel. um, it's it's definitely been uh, a very up and down experience, because I hated being a helper, and I I really didn't appreciate having somebody like me as a helper. It To me, having someone like, for example, as I got a little more experienced and I started to take on more at work, my dad became my helper. My dad has 35 years of experience, so he he's he's already, from the moment that he gets a project that he's putting a bid in, reverse engineering it. So he knows all the parts, how it's supposed to be assembled, all the steps necessary to get it installed right. Um, and he's already thinks through in depth to where it's installer friendly. I know I had heard on one of your previous episodes about making your millwork or your casework installer friendly, um, because you really can only be so prepared for things to go wrong on an install. You can't bring the whole shop with you. And I know you had a question you wanted to ask about that, uh, as regard to the difference between the two. It's being in the field, you can think ahead to what you might run up against, like warped walls, uneven floors, uh, other tradesmen,
Yeah.
you know. But being prepared for some being prepared in the event that something goes wrong, whether it be having tools that you shouldn't need for an install, having those available to you. Again, back to like the whole point I just said, you can't bring the whole shop with you.
Right.
So you are limited, but it teaches you how to fix things on the fly, how to, at least, let's say, prevent having to remake something, because you can manipulate it, you can touch up, you know, or in some cases you can replace just a small piece as opposed to redoing the whole thing. And in the shop, you're at the mercy of whatever tools and equipment that you have or that you own. Um, and our shop is fairly old school. Although me and Dad have discussed the CNC, we don't have one yet, and it causes us to work harder, but have to think and be smarter about our approach, because we know things will take us a little bit longer, but it doesn't mean that we can't provide the same thing that you'd be able to cut on the CNC. It's really just a matter of the time it takes to get to that point, and the CNC is it's a big financial investment and educational investment, uh, not to mention the space.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I know that you have experience designing, and I would definitely like to learn more about it. Is there anything that, let's say, from your experience with either CNC or doing 3D renderings, you know, what do you think that you can take from that that will help you as a fabricator or as a installer? That's because there's planning ahead, making it your parts installer friendly. So I guess that part would be, yeah. What do you think that you can take from your knowledge designing and in the CNC world and apply it to when you do get hands on?
Right. So the biggest benefit of having like the CNC is the efficiency that and the accuracy that it brings to the table because um I mean a CNC you basically for people that aren't too familiar it basically cuts out parts um on a 4x8 of sheet of melamine or plywood
Mhm.
or whatever material you're using and it's for us we use microvellum so
Okay.
to create our cut files so to basically answer your question in terms of like how could it help fabricating, how could it help installers, it instead of the fabrication process being cutting those individual parts, it takes that step out of the process. The fabricator doesn't have to cut the individual parts anymore because the CNC is doing that work. So it gives the fabricators more time to assemble
Hmm.
more boxes or die walls, countertops, stuff like that. So the biggest benefit is time
Hmm.
and accuracy. Um, so that's something that is a big game changer of having a CNC. On the install side of things, it kind of the install. I don't know a direct way it helps the install side of things because it's you're getting the product already. Um, whether it's
You're right. Yeah.
built without a CNC or with a CNC,
Hmm.
you're still installing the product,
A finished product,
a
correct?
finished
Yeah.
product, right? So I think the biggest help that a CNC does for a company is the speeds up the fabrication process, and minimal errors too. That's
Hmm.
another big thing, because there's human error in all processes, but having a CNC minimizes the amount of human errors you'll
Yeah.
have in the production process.
Because you're going through and designing a part based on drawings that you have. I'm assuming you're doing some sort of, like, let's say if you're mass producing that part, you're not just gonna click go, okay, green button,
Yeah.
whatever, and run and cut 30 parts. You're gonna cut one and make sure that it's right first.
Yeah, for
Because no matter how precise it might be, your inputting information could have been off, right?
exactly.
Um, and so while there's catching, like you said, human error or the process of um, fabricating being sped up, but also the precision behind it, I think, you know, it it really it's only going to continue to that part of the trade is only going to continue to grow. It's something that we need to uh, seriously take a look at and get started with because we're becoming obsolete. I mean, there are a lot of things that we are capable of that a CNC is capable of, but what might take you an hour could take me a day.
Right.
And we might end up with the same result, but there's no way we could charge the same amount. If you're paying somebody 8 hours or more, and then that one part, which is the test part, is wrong, it's like there's there's a lot of value in the efficiency of it, and that's got to be one of the most important parts of our trade is
Oh,
being efficient.
100%.
because if you're not being efficient, you're making mistakes, you're costing money, and you're not making money.
And the clients are mad they're not getting their
Yeah,
products in
right,
time.
right. Um,
To back up a little bit,
mhm,
so um, like the background of your career and everything. So you were talking about being a helper and how crucial it is to be a really good helper, and how you appreciated the experience because it provides a lot of value for everybody else on the team. And like speeding up the process
right.
to of like finishing projects. After being like a helper, was there another role that you jumped into right after that, or did you kind of like slowly start like I don't know, maybe dabbling a little bit in like the finishing aspect of millwork, or just like assembling boxes, or how did you progress from the helper stage?
The helper stage went from just being a helper in the shop to being a helper in the field, and they are two different things. As we kind of discussed, by the time you're in the field, you already have a finished product that's already thought through and hopefully easy to install. I mean, you know, we're we're not sending out big slabs of countertops to cut down. They're made to fit a wall, and if the wall's wavy, we know it ahead of time. And we're prepared for it. But the I'd say, like, in the moment, I did not appreciate the value of it. Um, and I really felt like I was wasting my time. Felt like I needed an opportunity to do more, to see if this is something I wanted to continue to pursue. Because most likely for anybody that might be getting started, you're going to start as some intern. You're going to start as a helper, observing and absorbing as much information as you can. And it might all look cool or fascinating on the outside, but really wanting to get your hands on it prematurely is where you need to be patient. You really need to be patient because it does take time to um, get comfortable and be confident in what you're doing. If not, you're costing yourself or company money, or you're going to make crucial errors that essentially someone should know better. It could be the difference of, let's say, like making a drawer box out of square, and you make 10 drawer boxes and they're all a little out of square, and you didn't check the first one, and next thing you know, you're trying to put your
Mhm.
drawers into the cabinets. They're having a hard time getting in. Yeah, you might be able to jam them in,
Yeah, but it's just
but the real lesson here is when you go to put that drawer front on, and you pull that drawer out after it's installed, then you put it back in, things are not going to line up, and that's because you have play within the drawer box. So that was actually, outside of being a helper, one of the first things that I started doing. Both drawer box cutlass assembly, the drawer glides, and understanding the deductions that you need to make so that way it isn't a snug, tight fit. You need to give a little bit of play for the slides and in the bearings. I've had uh, I've had drawer boxes that were a 16th strong, and you almost have to modify something to make it work because everything else is built precise. But if your product, that last box that goes in, isn't, uh, you end up either remaking it, or modifying it because of rushing through, not following your procedure, and um, I, I I've learned different ways to make a drawer box. But one of the things would be, I felt like I could do it more efficient. I felt like I had a different way to approach the assembly process, and I experimented with it on my own. So I stayed after hours, and that's an opportunity that I have that most people may not have. Is that I'm in a family business, it's a family shop, and I had the freedom to learn after hours. It wasn't all just uh, on the job or in the moment. I could branch off and try new things, and that's one of them. I tried to make a different drawer box jig, spend 3 4 hours just to find out that I might save a minute, and so questioning somebody with 35 years experience and how their approach is, it's good to ask questions. It's good to believe or to think that you can do things better, more efficient, you know, uh, but until you respect and appreciate the knowledge that's being given to you, you know, you really you can't necessarily learn from just following somebody else's instructions. You need to make mistakes, but you need to learn from those mistakes. You can't make repetitive mistakes. Um, that was, there's a lot of things that I thought I could do better, and then I thought I could do faster. Sometimes I have. There are times where I've been able to present something to my dad, prove myself, and earn the respect of, I see the way you're thinking, I see how your approach is, I see how thought out and planned, your process is. Try it and let's see what happens. And I've been given an opportunity to do things differently. Differently than what my dad knows or what other employees that I've worked with have been taught, because all of my knowledge for the most part has been handed to me from through other people, working with other people. Um and absorbing information constantly. I mean, there's still so much to learn, and you never stop learning. You get to a point where you feel like you don't want to learn more or you don't want to progress more. It might not be the job for you, because I'm passionate about what I do. Making a drawer box is boring, but I enjoy it. Making a cabinet to me now is boring, but I enjoy it. Like, I don't dread going to work every day. I don't dread having to make 30 drawer boxes. I don't dread having to laminate a countertop. I enjoy being able to turn raw materials into something unique, especially when it's all laid out for you in prints, and you're seeing somebody else's vision and you get to make it
Bring
come
that
to life.
alive. Yeah,
It's incredible.
it
It
is.
really is, and it's even better when you have a personal connection to the person. So I've had some projects through friends or family that, I you get to really feel the reaction, the appreciation, the wow,
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, well, they don't know how much time I really spent to get it to that point, but
but
you
it's
feel good.
yeah,
You feel rewarded, and it's not just a financial reward. The compliment of getting a call back later for something else.
yeah.
I have a couple of those, and it really is.
It's a feeling that not many people could say they've had themselves,
Yeah.
because it's an art, it's a craft, and like a lot of artists that I've even talked to, I mean, everybody's so passionate about their ability to create something for someone, and
Hmm.
especially having that emotional connection to it. That's you know you don't get that too often, and it becomes something that's very appreciative too,
Hmm.
especially from the one building it. I think that's something unique about the this business and the
So
industry.
even for you now, so let's say you are designing a desk based on a set of prints that you have, and you're in the office for hours doing it. You might not have all of the hands-on uh, attachment or connection to the project of actually assembling it, but the rewarding feeling of, well, I designed it correctly. This
Yes,
is exactly what it's supposed to look like.
yes,
It's all the right size. It's square, and you see the end result. It's collaboration. It's teamwork.
yep,
I mean, you don't necessarily have to know every part of the fabrication and production process to get to feel rewarded for your part or your role in it.
right,
For me and Dad, we have multiple roles. We fill in a lot of areas. I'm much more than just a drawer box guy, you know. Um, but the hmm, I guess that's probably
Yeah.
it.
So
Yeah. Let's
to
see.
or to kind of like branch off a little bit off what you were saying and like the like my role in the fabrication process with microfilm, like for example building a desk in microfilm that's going to get processed to the CNC. I'm not the one making like hands-on building it on the shop floor, but my goal as the user behind microbiome is to simplify that process on the floor
Yep.
as much as possible so they don't need to be running around making extra pieces to help assemble that desk or whatever,
Right.
that die wall. And one of like the things that I really like about microbiome is because it's a 3D um like it's CAD based, AutoCAD
Mm-hmm.
based, right? So you can see the 3D model of it. So I'm like, you know, looking at different angles of things, and I'm seeing, okay, making sure there's no discrepancies or there's nothing that's going to interfere with each other in the whole process of building it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like pretty cool from my point of view of things because like when I see it getting built on the shop floor and I see it either not going as smoothly as I thought, I'm gonna be, asking them like,
Right.
okay, what could I do better
Mm-hmm.
in the design process of building that wall, of building the desk to help you guys build it faster or more smoothly, more efficiently,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So, yeah, I might not be the one hands-on doing it, but in a way, I am building it in a another sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No. So my sophomore year, I took it was a PLTW Introduction to Engineering Design.
What does that
This
stand
class,
for?
Project Lead the Way,
Okay.
and it was a, a program for a CAD program, um, doing 3D modeling, reverse engineering, critical thinking, and documentation. So creating your, let's say I was making a birdhouse on there, being able to take your 3D image and show all the different views of it
Yep.
and present it as if it were a print. Having a plan view, a section, an elevation. Um, the problem I found with that was that I was bored. I wanted to make the birdhouse. I didn't want to make a 3D model of the birdhouse. Um, n- and that was right at the right as I'm getting past being a helper and starting to take on specific tasks that would help with the production. Um, and I just found that for me, if I was going to pick a direction, I felt it was more necessary to get the hands-on experience versus the technology experience.
Hmm.
Uh, there are things that you'll learn because of other people telling you, and it's things that you wouldn't know better unless you're a fabricator, unless you've experienced how not to do something or
Right.
why you're going to run into a problem later. Um, and so it is valuable for you too to take advantage of the opportunity to get out in the shop. Be a helper, be the best helper you can be. Help assemble, a project that you created, and you gain the knowledge of. That's like you said. Sometimes there are going to be things that don't go right or didn't go as smooth as you had thought, but you need to know why.
Absolutely.
If you don't learn from it,
You're gonna
you-
keep making the same mistake,
and you're
and
going to keep costing money.
yes,
And as a small businessman, we have to be efficient. We cannot afford errors. And if you do make an error, you need to be able to make up for it even faster. You can't sit there and slump your shoulders and beat yourself up. You need to as quickly as possible overcome the error so you don't hold up the rest of the production line. Um, but yeah, that introduction class for me, um, I know a lot of the basic tools. Uh, it, it's been about 10 years now since I've used it, so I would have to really, I'd have to relearn, but I feel like all of my experience fabricating and in a way, taking all of these puzzle pieces and creating some finished product at the end result, I have the hands-on experience now. And I want to be able to design something and go make it. I don't want to just be sitting at a computer or operating a machine. That might be where our trade is heading, but there's value in it, and I feel like I've learned a lot of things the hard way, but for good reason. And it's helped shape me. There's a to be able to overcome a problem that is unexpected, just from it could be one of those moments I stayed after work and I was messing with something. If you don't invest, if you don't want to keep advancing, keep learning, you're gonna you're gonna hit a wall, pretty much. Limit yourself and limit the opportunities that get presented to you. But I'll let you.
Yeah, so kind of like, yeah, moving topics here. Um from working in the shop and working on the field, we kind of dabbled a little bit into it.
Mhm.
But what would you say with your personal experience, maybe what does it look like to work in the shop versus working in the field? And kind of like share about your experience with that.
So, um,
And
I,
sorry, before you go on, to like also help the audience understand like kind of like what we're talking about, what type of work do you normally do? Like what is like a typical job that you might be doing? Just to get paint the picture for, people that are kind of new to the industry, or, other people that are just curious of like the type of work that you're doing within millwork.
so I mainly work with laminate, with melamine. I make European style cabinets. We we do we also do uh, Corian, solid surface, uh, countertops, wall caps, paneling, things like that. And the big thing for uh, the field is you want to minimize. You want to minimize the thinking in the field. You want to minimize the cutting in the field, the mess, um, because you're set up in the shop. You have all of your equipment that you're accustomed to having. You're not working off of a little job site table saw. You've got your industrial table saw, or you can be limited in the field by the mobile equipment that you have, where they're still gonna help you, but having everything at your disposal in the shop, whether it be all of your equipment, uh, new material to remake something, or jigs, templates that'll help speed up the process that you might not have thought you needed in the field. Let's say we have a little jig that creates a 1/8 to zero taper, and really simple, really fast in the shop, or quick setup. I can have it done in 30 seconds. But in the field, you might not have thought that your floors were going to need that 1/8 inch taper. You check the floor, but the back end's dipping, and they don't want to see any. Let's say you don't want to see shims, and you have a toe kick that's already pre-finished on the outside. You don't have a loose toe kick to go in front, and you might have to do modifications because of the work that you're installing on. So if it's somebody else's flooring job or someone else's drywall job, so really the two main things that impact us the most. Uneven floors are out of your control. Uneven walls are out of your control, but you're still expected to. You're the finished product. You're still expected to to provide a complete and natural looking finished piece. You can't just install something that's hanging a half inch off the wall and saying, well, it's touching on the other end. It's not my fault the wall's bad. You need a solution for that. So you can say, well, I didn't do the drywall and I'm not responsible for that, but you're going to need trim here. You're going to need to hide this gap, this imperfection, because it's not a factor of our millwork being wrong. It's
The
right,
uncontrollables on the field.
correct, yeah. Um, and yeah, in the shop you can control just about everything, and if you make a mistake, you can overcome it right there. You have to come back to the field. You have to come back to a job site. If you make an error that can't be fixed, um, you scratch a door that can't be touched up. I mean, you chip a corner, and it might be the last thing you have is a set of countertop in place, and you bump it against the wall. Next thing you know, you're damaging walls, somebody else's work, and they got to send someone else back to patch up. So you you want to make your product as easy to install, as effortless to install as possible, and prevent a lot of the potential errors. For example, like countertops, to help prevent those wavy walls, you create a scribe. You have a scribe on if you either have two contact points if you're butting up to a corner, or if you are just butting up to an open wall and it's open on both ends, you still have two contact points in the back where what we add is a countertop scribe that would be anywhere from, say, an eighth, quarter inch piece of material. The rest of the countertop there is hollow. So you're adding a scribe to that will be covered by a backsplash. And this scribe is to eliminate the need to cut your countertop if a wall's bad.
Yep.
You're able to pop it in, and you don't have to modify in the field. So that's one of those things that
It's like a not a trick in the trade, but in a
more or
way,
less, so yeah,
it's a trick in the trade.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a recent one that I've learned about, and see the value of it too, especially getting feedback from the installers, and hearing, this is really key having the scribe on the end of the countertop,
Hmm.
when you're in between walls because, like you said, it eliminates having to cut the entire countertop,
Yeah.
which is creating more time, more mess to clean up,
Hmm.
and just yeah,
There's more chance for error too. So if you eliminate the chance of making a mistake by adding a scribe, it could be that all you got to do is take the scribe off. You don't have to cut anything, and it'll fit nice and snug. Or you'll have a small gap that's a caulkable, finishable. Uh, but a lot of this just comes with experience and repetition. You have to face problems. You have to.
do you embrace them too? Like, are you or when you see a problem, do you look at it as, oh man, like this is gonna hold me back, or are you straight to it? Let's find a solution right away.
I would definitely straight to it, but uh, not necessarily by choice. So I mean, straight to it because we're a small business and there's no time. There's no time to, like I said, to shrug your shoulders, put your head down, and beat yourself up. You need to overcome it as fast as possible because you still have a deadline, and the deadline didn't change just because you messed up.
Yeah,
You know, you might make a little less on a job, looking at it from the company's standpoint, but if it if it's something that you can overcome quickly, you're learning from the mistake. You're less likely to repeat that same mistake. It's a valuable lesson. If it costs an extra $20 in board, but you learn from it, it's well worth the $20. You know, uh, and sure, you want to prevent those as much as possible. You don't want to cost yourself more money. You don't want to have to complete a job, and at the end result, your profits are significantly less because of errors. You trying to prevent that, and especially in the CNC world, you're able to be very accurate. and I mean, hell, even now laser measuring and
Yeah.
it, it, there's there's a lot that technology has to offer to simplify it and to prevent the human error, but the human error is still a
It's
necessary part. It
yeah.
really is because I mean, if you don't make errors, you're not learning. It could be if you don't make errors for 10 years and then you make a mistake on the biggest job of your life.
It's like, well, if you never made those errors in the past, how are you going to learn to fix
Right.
this
And
big error?
it's okay to make mistakes, but you have to treat every mistake as a lesson. And if, as long as it's a lesson, it wasn't a mistake, it's a lesson. You
Right.
learn from it and it was necessary. Um, the bad ones are when you repeat
Yeah.
and I've done it. I've rushed through filing a countertop and chipping a corner, and then you're redoing an edge,
Yeah.
or whatever. It's costing a company more time, more money, and find so you got to find a balance between being efficient and producing a good quality of work.
Yeah.
If if your priority is just efficiency, you're going to have a crappy product at the end. You might get it done as fast as possible, but you're going to overlook things. You're going to overlook errors, you're going to overlook scratches, you're going to overlook imperfections, and it just reflects negatively on you. On the flip side, if you take too long and you're too much of a perfectionist, kind of like I am, I've had to learn that the hard way of knowing when enough is enough, knowing that there's a tolerance, knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect because you see a detail that most people will not see.
Yeah.
And it still bugs me. And I still want to prevent that next time. So it's either spending a little time trying to minimize a mistake and make it as invisible as possible, but then also, you know, why did I do it this way? And I got to make sure that I the next time I'm presented with an opportunity to make the same item or do the same process, whatever it is, that you have to take the lessons with you every step of the way, every month, every year. And for me now, I build cabinets and countertops all day. I do it without thinking. I look at a layout, a blueprint, and I
You
can
already
break
know
I
how you're
break down
gonna.
all the parts in my head,
Yeah.
and I know all the sizes. I know how we're gonna assemble it. Now, granted, there are other ways to do it, but how we assemble, how we build our cabinets, I've got that process down pat to where it's effortless. It's without thinking. It allows me to be as efficient as I can while also giving me the clarity to think ahead on the next step. So working on whatever the task is at hand in that moment, you want to be efficient, but at the same time, if all your focus is on that and you're not thinking about the next step, then you're going to be taking a step back later. You're gonna move on, and you didn't really think this part through. But you emphasized all of the time on this drawer box, but you didn't think through how the drawer front was going to mount to it and what you might face if it's not even, if it's crooked. And again, a lot of that is just the repetition of just facing problems as they come and overcoming them as efficiently as possible. Uh, you know, we've definitely grown a lot over in the last 12 years that I've been there. You know, me and Dad specifically, he's my biggest inspiration. And um he has his limitations too, and there are things that he couldn't teach me because he doesn't know. I still want to learn them, and I have the four brick walls, the tools, and the opportunity to experiment. And so I take that on my own. We don't do much woodworking. We don't do much finishing, but we have in the past, and I got all of the hands-on experience that I could. It drew me in, and it made me want to create stuff for my house, of which that turned into creating stuff for other people. And I have examples of things that as a company we would never do. We're never going to go after this kind of work. It's not profitable for us. But for me, even though it likely wasn't profitable for me either, because I'm learning on the go, the experience that you gain from it is more valuable than the money.
Yep.
You know, um, the next time you make a custom island, you've got background knowledge, you have how to's, how not to's in your head. You're able to envision it from start to finish better than you might for the first time. And a lot of our trade really is patience. You have to be patient, you have to absorb information and if at any point you feel like you dread taking on the next step or you dread doing something, I don't like sanding. I don't think anybody really enjoys sanding. Sanding is a disaster, but it's a necessary disaster. It's necessary to every process we do, whether you're sanding melamine to scuff the surface for laminating or you're sanding your wooden table to prep it for finish. You rush through it, you're going to get a crappy end result. You're going to see those little swirl marks, imperfections if you don't go within with the grain. And at the same time, you take your time. The end result, you'll see the difference between being efficient and your quality of work. But in finding the balance of that really just comes with the hands-on experience. I can't wait to start designing things and doing 3D models. But it was necessary to have hours and hours and hours and hours, Saturdays after Saturdays. I am at the shop every Saturday, and I'm not always working on Saturday. Sometimes I have to. Sometimes it's required because of a deadline, but that Saturday is either my opportunity to make extra money or to advance my skills. And I can't stay home. I've tried to stay home when, let's say my back is sore, I'm hurting, I haven't had a day off in a while, and I just get antsy, and I just feel like a waste. Like I don't understand. I can't sit here and play video games like I used to. I can't sit here and just watch a show. I really, most likely, I start picturing things that I want to build in the house, and I'll get ideas that'll fill my schedule and keep me busy. Something new to experiment with, and um, it's been an incredible journey. But I would say that the passion for creating something out of nothing and the rewarding feeling of somebody's somebody's just reaction, it might even be my own reaction of I can't believe I did that. You know, it really is that's what's propelled me this far. That's the reason that I'm here doing this with you. There are a lot of things that I was uncomfortable doing. There were a lot of things that I was scared to do, but I still wanted to learn. I had less excuses than most people would have, because I had the access to a shop. I had the access to tools. I didn't have to pay. I didn't even have to pay to rent out space. Dad saw me in that passion, wanting to advance my skills, and he really only helped me go at it full force. He would help out wherever he could or advise me on things that he knew from his own experience, but I've ventured out into different areas that he either hasn't or he's done a long time ago and realized it's not as profitable. And for our small business, it's me, my dad, and my mom. And I do most of the fabrication myself. There really isn't time to experiment as a small business. It's difficult for us to take big risks um, because next month, I mean, it could be the case for any given business, but next month isn't guaranteed, and you don't know that you're gonna maintain the relationships with people, even if you do everything right. They still might just take a chance on someone else because they're a little bit cheaper, and it's like you'll go above and beyond for people, and You need to find balance there too, because you'll get taken advantage of. It'll be expected for you to make everything so installer friendly that you might as well have just popped it up there and not charge because it was effortless. No, we think ahead to make installer's job as easy as possible, but that reflects positively on us from the installer's point of view, but it isn't necessarily appreciated from the project manager's point of view. Now, if all they hear is good things about the millwork or the casework as it was installed, they're more likely to continue to use us or continue to send us future jobs. But the positive feedback there is, who are we impacting the most? And it's the customer and it's the installers. Then it's the contractor, whomever we're doing the work for. So you have the customer that's going to see the product that they're paying for. And if they're not happy, then your contractor's not happy. If the contractor's not happy, you might not get another job.
Yeah.
And there's risk every day. So as a small business, we need to minimize our risk, but we also both need to step out of our comfort zones and take it a step further too. Because we will be obsolete, and it will come to a point where shops just have employees operating equipment every single step of the way, and everything does it for you. In our cases, it's a lot more hands-on and measuring and cutting each individual piece, you know. Um, but anyway, let's see,
Yeah.
let's get a
So,
chance to move on with that. Yeah.
um, we definitely touched a lot about the shop aspect in the field,
Mhm.
in your experience. Have you dabbled with anything on the office side of the millwork industry in your family business?
Um, it's been minimal, but um, for example, I know how to read blueprints. Like I said, I we do. If I get a layout, I don't necessarily need an optimized cutlass to get started. I It's all broken down in my head, and other than making like a checklist and making sure you have everything, um, I can do things without thinking because of it. If that answers your question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a way. Have you dabbled or scratched the surface with like project management or even estimating stuff
Yeah.
with like your dad? That kind of side of the business.
A little bit, and more it's been more on the observing and
Observing.
and and being present while he's discussing something. And you it's okay, and it's really good to ask questions, really, but you need to know when the right time is.
Yeah.
So, you know, when let's say in this case, my father is speaking with a project manager and I'm there at the job site, they're going over some of the fine details. If I got a question, the time to ask dad is when we get back in the car, not to sit there and interrupt what they're doing, what they're discussing, because I learned some of these things the hard way, not by having a negative feedback, but more so that you you can just interrupt somebody's train of thought, you know, and your question could be valid. It could be a good question, but project manager, they have their own job to do. They're dealing with the different trades, and making sure everybody is at a walkthrough or whatever it might be. Um, the time for questions as a up and coming fabricator, mill worker, is it's important to to do it at the right time. And I can't necessarily say when the right time is. I just know it's fairly clear when's the wrong time.
Yeah.
So when
Read the room and
right,
see,
when
you
you're
know,
feeling stress and you're feeling the pressure just from being present, it's not the time to ask a silly question. And it might be a silly question that you need an answer to because it's going to help your development.
yeah.
But yeah, reading in the room, and it it's you earn respect that way too, both from your father, and I know you will, and with your experience, but then also with the people that you're in business with, and they see they want to see people our age that want to learn, and if you're eager to learn, if you're asking questions, if you're engaged, you're more likely to get that one-on-one teaching experience. I mean, most of the information that I have or the knowledge I have is from somebody teaching me hands-on. Um, I've read articles, I've watched, you know, tutorials on things that I've experimented with on my own, but for the most part, I was taught everything by someone else, and their way might not be the right way. It just might be the only way they know. And that's where I get back into that experimenting on my own a little bit to try to see if I can do something better.
Yeah,
But we also, as we get into other areas, like let's say you deeper into fabrication and me deeper into the office. This is in general, but also it applies here. You need to take constructive criticism,
absolutely.
and you need to be able to handle that. And like I'm a very proud person, but you also you really make yourself look bad if you can't
Accept
accept. Right,
criticism,
right.
but
And if
not in a negative way, but more in a positive way to learn.
right, like if somebody's giving you the time of day to tell you something that they recognize, yeah, it depends on their approach. They could do it just to uh,
Maybe tick you
talk
off.
down talk
Or,
down
yeah,
you, or yeah, right. But there's also the people that see your interest, your investment, and your eagerness to learn. They're going to be more willing to show you and more willing to answer those questions. But you know we're all human. We all have our own problems in our personal lives that going on, and our own responsibilities at work. So when as a being young and as a young kid, and uh just getting started into this career, I it was a learning experience of feeling like my question is necessary. But if you ask it, even if, let's say, you ask the question later and you feel that it's in the best interest to wait because it's not the right time. There have been times I'm talking with dad, and dad will say, "Well, why didn't you bring that up?" Okay. What do you mean? Like, I thought it
yeah,
I thought it was all about finding the right time to,
right.
I mean, and so you're learning from experience, but you got to be involved. You got to be involved everywhere. And so I have a general idea of the pricing, the bidding process. I can read prints, but for the most part, that's being done while I'm producing something.
Hmm.
While I'm in the shop building something. By the time I'm done with that, the next job is coming through. That's what our company had required or needed from me the most, and that's what I wanted to do the most, was the hands-on learning. Back when I was in high school, me and dad had talked about the CNC, and I had showed him things that I was creating, the documentation of it, looking at my model. But we really, at the time, we needed somebody to build countertops, or we needed somebody to laminate, build drawer boxes, cabinets. And um I guess I've I've taken advantage of the opportunities that they present themselves, but I've created a lot more for me too. And that's why I'm a little more experienced than, and even you will be too, a little more experienced than other people your age, is because we have the direct connection to dad.
Yeah,
And
it's a big benefit.
you're gonna you're gonna get more one-on-one time, whether it is at home, whether it is just in the office, just you two talking and chit-chatting,
On the ride to a job
on
site.
the ride back. And you're gonna go over things, and you finding the time to ask those questions. We are very fortunate, and we need to take advantage of that opportunity, because they're only gonna get older. Sooner or later, our dads aren't gonna be able to show us; they're only gonna be able to tell us. You know, take advantage. If dad can show you what he means, as opposed to just trying to explain it to you, because we're losing that.
Yeah.
We're losing the hands-on lessons. I've been taught by 5 or 6 different people that different tips and tricks, and something, my dad never knew anything about. I've showed him how to fix a laminated edge, or how to get a seam to match up perfectly without having to measure it exactly and be precise with the laminate. There's people learn tricks of the trades,
Yeah.
and it's they're going to be lost. They're going to be lost if we don't take advantage of the opportunity to learn them,
Yep.
pick up as much as you can. But a lot of that is, you need to be passionate about this. Um, it our line of work, especially if we're more on the commercial side, really you don't get that rewarding feeling as much. It is more about just getting a product to a job site, whether you're installing it or you're not. When that's all said and done, you're moving on to the next job, and you're not thinking about that, and you're hoping it doesn't come up again. You're hoping you don't get a call from that guy, because it's usually a problem. It's usually something that they don't like, or that they don't accept with it. So the goal is to not get calls, at least in the first week or so after a
Yeah.
job is done. And
Unless the compliments.
right, unless
We'll
it's
take those.
compliments or saying I got another one for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
another kind of like question that I have, and we kind of touched on this already, but figured I'd ask again. What's your personal favorite department? And having exposure to a lot of things, um, given you're in the family business, if you had to narrow down your favorite, whether it's installing, assembling, finishing, what would you say your personal favorite is? Or just the general concept of bringing an idea to life?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily want to say it like that, but really, it's just the ability to create. You know, I look at a bunk of boards, and I know that it's about to turn into 30 cabinets. And somebody else on the outside will look at that and say, "Well, how did you do that?" Well, there's a
Yeah.
lot of steps. There's a lot of steps involved, and there's a lot of mistakes and learning along the way. So, um, for me, I think what I appreciate the most really is creating something from nothing, from
Yeah.
scratch. And that's why I've ventured off into fixing vehicles and the machine maintenance. And you know, if a machine isn't working properly, ju- for example, our table saw fence is a little snug in the back, starting to burn. And there's adjustments. There's adjustments for the fence, for the table itself, for the blade. And as you use it over and over every day, the vibrations alone, things will move and go a little out of square, and you usually don't recognize something until it's on a finished product too
Yeah.
late. For
Yeah.
example, there are times where I'm doing edge banding. I'm edge banding some doors, but I cut all these doors on the table saw, and it was 1 degree off. So it was 91 degrees, or let's say, or 44 degrees. Either way, you have a slight angle to it. You run it through a machine that's designed for square edges, and it's applying glue. It's applying your edging, trimming, finishing as it comes out. It looks good, and it's stuck on there, but the backside has a lip. The backside has no glue because you had a teeny angle to it, and you didn't check your blade first. So now all these doors that I just cut up on there, because I didn't think ahead, or I didn't remember making this mistake before. Now all these doors either got to be skimmed down a little bit again, and your gaps are going to be bigger, and you have to make sacrifices because,
Of a
uh,
1 degree difference.
yeah,
I mean, it's as
it really
simple as
it
that.
really is. Yeah.
Um, that's it's a simple thing, but it makes it a big difference. Another question I got, um, are there any projects that you've done that you're most proud of?
Um, Well, I would say that the one that I'm most proud of was I made a vanity cabinet and a medicine cabinet for my grandparents. And at the time, I had never worked with face frame cabinets, no experience with it. I had never made uh, shaker doors, and I made a lot of mistakes. But even though that project took me a lot longer than it probably should have, I think the biggest lesson I learned from it was that I went into it too confident. I was like, "Oh, I make cabinets every day. Oh, I know how to stain wood." And then yeah, I do. Wiping the stain on, wiping it off, allowing it to dry. But like I said, the difference between quickly sanding and I guess slow but efficiently sanding, your end result shows imperfections or it doesn't based on the time you invest in it. So there are a lot of lessons that I learned with that when I was making doors. I made the shaker doors. I didn't clean up my wood glue. I mean, I did, but not as well as I should have. Or I used a lot more than I needed to, and it caused a big mess, a big cleanup. Long story short, I ended up making new doors because the stain would show all the wood glue, and the little wood glue spots wouldn't take stain. Now you try to sand that area and you fixing it, but really once you apply stain to one area and you're trying to sand and fix another, there's already going to be conflict.
Yeah.
They're not going to be identical. You might get away with it if you have, let's say, if you just resand the whole surface, which in some cases I've done, but the ability to like make, I mean my grandparents and my parents and family, they're all proud of me, but to have that opportunity to provide something for them was very rewarding. Um, I also made and I had sent you some pictures of it. I made a barnwood island, and it was has two little or three little dog bowls for customer's dog, and there's two pallets that I created to mimic pallets, but they're shelves for storage. And she's the customer. She's a baker, so this is her like baking station for prepping her cakes or whatever it is. And um, there's a personal connection there, but the opportunity to try something new that even dad has never experienced. Dad has never worked with anything like this. I mean, you're making cuts, but you really can't mess up the natural look of the wood because
Yeah.
that's the end result is natural. So that sawed or milled rough surface of the wood and then the aging and the color that comes with it, that one was very unique for me and a good learning experience just because it was a first. It was a first for me that at least if I ever have an opportunity to do something like that again, I've got drawings, cut lists, pictures, I've got documentation, information from that project that I can refresh my memory. I got notes of things, what not to do or where things went wrong. I try to be as thorough as possible with it, but um, again, that's trying not to make the same mistakes twice. So you jot down things and how much time it took you to overcome an error and um, not to mention the let's say like the added cost or the hit on your profit because of it. So the lessons are valuable in themselves, but also I've reached a point where I shouldn't be making little mistakes like this. I don't really anymore, but I'm still human. I'll mark something on my tape measure and I'll mark 5/8 instead of 3/8, and I just glanced at it, made my mark, thought I was right, boom, and then okay, fortunately this time I cut it big, not small. But that's the measure twice, cut once. That's the saying.
Yeah.
You double checking your work to prevent future errors, or you get a finished product that just needs one final cut, but it took 5 steps to get it to this point. You cut that wrong, you're starting all over. And so learning from both my side work and the opportunities that business has presented to me. I think they've all kind of tied together to create or shape who I am. And and there's a lot of, we've mentioned a little earlier, a lot of wasted time, but I feel like I don't regret it. I wouldn't change anything. I sacrificed going out and spending time with friends on the weekends to be at the shop making something.
It's kind of like part of the process of learning and
Yeah.
developing your skills and yourself as a person too.
Hmm.
I mean, like you said, sacrificing, going out. I mean, that's something I do too. If you want it that bad, you're gonna have to make some sacrifices,
Yeah.
and if you want to get better, you're gonna have to, you know, pick and choose what you spend your time on wisely,
Hmm.
because you need to take advantage of the time you have now to invest in yourself and further develop your skills. Um, and it kind of leads me into my next question about challenges that you faced and how you've overcome them to kind of get where you're at now.
The biggest challenge I would say to this point is majority of the time my dad's right. Majority of
Is
the
that like
time,
a tough pill to swallow type
yeah,
of thing?
yeah. Where it's the biggest challenge had been respecting the experience of other people. It's not to the not necessarily to say that I disrespected or didn't think they knew what they were saying. It's this perfectionist in me. It's if I see something that I think tweaking it is going to help us more beneficial, faster, I want to try it. I want to do it. I want to explore that avenue. But I've had to respect the knowledge that the people who before me were the knowledge they have, and that they've already made experience, mistakes rather. They've already experienced a lot of these trial and error, situations that if they're trying to prevent you from or prevent you from making the same mistake, is a you gotta find a balance there too, because y- sometimes learning on your own is necessary, but if someone's telling you how not to do something because they know better, take it.
Yeah.
You know, take it and absorb all that information in. So yeah, just respecting that the fact that my dad's already done this, been through hundreds of projects before I was even started. I mean, and we are at a level where there's a lot more collaboration now, um, and a lot more open to new ideas and trying things differently. But I also see where in the past I might have been so eager to do something differently for no reason. Really, I've just like, oh well, my mind's rolling and I'm thinking of how I might. I keep going back to this drawer box example. Make a drawer box station that might be more effective for all different types of drawer boxes. And you spend all this time on something that dad will put together in 3 minutes, and you got a jig that works perfect. Your fancy jig is fancy, and it's overkill. And you've spent a lot of time creating something that just isn't really necessary. Especially if it's not something you do often.
Right.
Like there are times where we'll have a unique situation, and I want to dive in and invest the time making a fancy jig. But sometimes, let's say if you only need to use it once and you don't see yourself in a position of needing it again, you need to draw a line at how much of a perfectionist your approach is with this. Because for me, that's always been a challenge of wanting to be too perfect, or wanting to be as fast. I wanted to be the best. I want to be the best. I want to be irreplaceable. I want to be, and I am unique, but I want to be better than the people before me. I want to take their information and apply it to my own experiences and keep that knowledge moving from generation to generation. I just don't know many people like me. I don't know many people our age that are, uh,
Doing this type of work.
yeah, or that I don't know of anyone that even is interested. Like there could be, and that's why I see the value of this podcast is that, especially with the technology, we're on our phones, we're listening to podcasts, YouTubes, and it just during the day you get to the point where if you're at work and you're at a job that you don't like and you're listening to podcasts about something that you're interested in and you want to do, and you're hearing a bunch of younger people talking about their experience, it could be the difference. It could be the difference between you saying, you know what, I'm going to find an internship. I'm going to find a place I can get a entry level job at. I'm going to put my 2 weeks in here and I'm going to go and do it.
Yeah.
But you gotta take that first step and really be open to the possibilities because they're endless. There's so much that you can create with your hands, with this equipment, with CNC, and it just keeps getting more and more advanced.
And it's never gonna go away either.
Right, right.
There's there's always creation, and as long as we're here to provide and build to create too, I mean,
Hmm.
you're you're never gonna be jobless with this
Right.
industry.
Yeah.
There's always a need for people like us in the industry.
And I know I had heard on one of your other episodes that you talked about I forget what was the rate that you said of older
Oh
generations
yeah,
retiring versus coming in.
so it's about um for every like 10 people leaving the trade, there's between I think it was like 3 or 4 people coming in,
Yeah.
if that. And there's at the rate that we're going, I mean, yeah, machines are, starting to replace people, but you still need the people to run those machines. You need
Yeah.
people to fabricate um and do like the die walls that a machine can't do. A
Hmm.
machine can't put together a die wall.
Yeah.
You still the skill to create certain products is still needed. And if the people that have that skill are leaving and not passing it down,
Right.
it's gonna make our industry difficult because we're gonna be looking for people that have that skill, but they don't exist. Or the other thing is we need to figure out as like a company, how can we train new people to develop those skills? And how
Right.
can we do it efficiently? Because obviously, this firsthand. It takes time, takes repetition to to learn and develop the strong skills.
Hmm.
Um, and being able to reciprocate that and teach other people is going to be valuable. And another kind of like a side note is, people like to gatekeep their skills,
Yeah.
and it's like, why would you want to do that when the industry is it's starting to dry up of these skilled people, and it's like, dude, you gotta teach other people because in the long run, it's only going to be helpful.
That's one thing that I agree, and I've seen that, but I also have been very fortunate to be surrounded by people that were more than willing to teach and more than willing to share it with me. And I've learned a lot from my father, but there are former employees of his that are working somewhere else now who have taught me things, who, I've filled in helping them out with installs and learning some tricks that I've never seen before. And maybe dad knows, maybe he doesn't know, but I haven't faced it yet. I haven't been in a situation where I needed to come up with a solution for this. And the more exposure, really your older generation, they're going to be willing to share and teach as long as your interest and your passion is there. But if you're like I said, if you continue handing somebody the wrong screws, I mean, they're just gonna say, "Wait, look, we need a new helper. This guy doesn't even care enough to know what an inch and a half screw is, or
Yes.
So you have to. I feel there has to be a certain level of passion in this business, whether we're young, old, but the older generation seeing the youth, seeing somebody who is eager. and wants to learn and wants to absorb as much as possible. I mean, yeah, there's still people out there that feel like, well, I still got 15 years till I retire, and I want to teach them all my tricks, you know? And it's a shame. It
Cause
really is. And I understand, hey, that's your job security. You have a family, you know? But it is a shame that some people are reluctant to pass that on, you know? And that's where me and you were fortunate that, you know, our fathers are both going to be teachers to their employees because they're expecting certain results from them, but then they're going to get even deeper with me, you and me, even more in depth about any given topic. And they're going to answer these questions as long as the interest is there. You just take advantage of the outsiders that have no ties to you and owe you nothing, because if they're giving you information, I mean, I've never to this point been led wrong or been, you know, guided in a way that someone was trying to sabotage me.
mhm.
It's possible, I'm sure, you know, and I'm sure if you're in in a shop setting with, oh, 10 to
It's
15
all right.
employees, that's all good. If you're in a shop setting, 10 to 15 employees, I mean, there's going to be people there who feel like they need to make more money and they want to ask for more money, but you know, if they start asking for more money and this guy here who just started it can do it for $5 an hour cheaper. I mean, you know, people will start just looking out for themselves.
Yeah.
See, me personally, I'm not going to go out of my way to try to convince somebody to take the information I have. I'm not going to go out of my way to force it onto anybody. But you've already shown me enough that I'm willing to share and I'm willing to engage. I'm willing to grow this relationship on a personal level and a business level because I don't know anyone else. It's not that I haven't it's not that I'm reluctant to share. You know, it's more so that there's nobody really to share it with.
Right.
Hopefully, doing something like this, we are able to just connect.
Yeah.
You know, to network, to connect to other people, to give people a chance to try something new. You know, and it's a trade that's not going away. You know, it only anything the demand is only going to increase as people start to retire. You know,
Absolutely.
and the problem is, as we've discussed with that, as people start to retire, you're losing those skills. You're losing those little tricks, those, you know, the install install repairs or on-site, you know, whatever it is. I guess it's there's so much that we in this trade that we are get involved with where we constantly are learning, but you also have to be ready and move on to the next job.
Right.
So, you know, with this project or this podcast rather coming up, um, I spent some time digging deep into when I first started, and it was unlocking a lot of closed doors that I've just forgotten about. Things I forgot about how much I hated being a helper. You know, I dreaded it so much, and it was I wanted to just quit. I wanted to do something else. Like I didn't come here to just really to clean up after people and hand them their tools. But you start to understand what the tools do. You start to understand the way the people think and why they're thinking this way, and it's all necessary. It all ties together in the long run, and you need to be patient, and you need to just be a sponge. You need to be a sponge.
Soak it up.
For anybody young or older getting into this, you know, you just have to be willing to learn, but be patient because there's so much to learn. It can't be all thrown at you at once because you will fail. You'll most likely want to give up if you are thrown too many things. You have to reach a certain level of internal confidence in your abilities before taking on the next step. You know, and yeah,
Yeah. No, that's great. And kind of on slowly closing it up now. Um, just overall thoughts on the industry. Like, what are you thinking? Um, in general, or maybe the direction we might be heading into. What are your thoughts on it?
gonna be very limited, um, because I still have so much to learn. See, my experience has been a lot of doing things old school, the hard way, with hand tools, with lesser quality equipment, and um, I don't know enough about it to really be able to comment on it.
Hmm.
And that's I'm going into this is 12 years for me now, and I still have so much to learn. But I prioritized perfecting my craft in other areas before taking that step, because at the end of the day, I have to be hands on. I have to be involved one way or the other. I can't imagine myself sitting at a desk doing bids and creating drawings all day. If it ever gets to a point that that for example, we have people estimating for us, or we have people doing drawings. I'm still gonna opt for shop field work and wanting to be involved one way or the other in some form of project management, or you know picking up the slack. Making up for a mistake that was made, because things happen. We are all human, things are bound to happen. We're bound to make little errors, or even the machines sometimes you know they need to be maintenance, and if they're not, you don't notice something until it's a little too late. But the moving forward, technology is only continuing to advance, and if uh, if I want any kind of future in this trade, I need to advance with it.
Absolutely.
But I feel that the 12 years I've invested were very necessary, and without it, you know, you need to know why you're doing something every step of the way. If you're just doing what you're told, you can't think for yourself. You can't think on your feet in a moment's notice. How are you going to handle something as it goes wrong? If you're just taught to follow instructions, uh, you're going to be very limited, and um, likely want to get out of the trade. I mean, for me, it's you- following instructions, but then also your mind needs to be rolling. You need to be thinking it through, and you do, as a young employee, just getting started, do what you're told, keep your head down, but your eyes up. Learn. Don't force your way uh, into really any given conversation, because it won't be respected. It'll be looked down on. You're we as people were you see look, I'm young, but if I were to see a 15, 16-year-old kid come in and start throwing ideas at me, I'd be like, listen, man, like, I know your mind's working that way, but like, I've already hands-on experience with this. I have project after project. I've already dealt with this. So we it's equally important to pass skills on, but then to put the time in yourself, refining those skills. And there's still so much for me to learn that I'm looking forward to, because um in a way I feel like I've got the hard part down. Uh, I think that because of the experience fabricating, assembling, uh, finishing, installing, when the time comes that I get behind that computer and I start designing, I mean, I already break it down in my head. I can already visualize all my parts just being separated, and how they're going to come together. Um, and it'll make that job that much easier, that much more efficient for me to do, because we've or me in my case have the hands-on experience. I've handled these situations, and I've done it the wrong way before, and I know why something won't work. Everything from the sweeping to figuring out the easiest way to install wall cabinets by yourself. Like, it, there's there's so much out there for us to absorb, and I feel like I've taken advantage of everything that I could up until this point. If anything, I need a what's the word? I need a little boost into the next direction.
I see.
I need some. This is in a way, this is me taking that step. I'm not a very open person. Most people don't know about my experiences, and I work by myself. Now, yeah, sometimes dad is there helping me fabricate, or he's in the office. But in the past, I had worked with other employees. Today, I'm by myself. So I think, you know, I, most of all, I would say for people coming into the industry or people that want to get started, they're not going to have the same, I don't want to call it handout, but handout for lack of a better word, as me and you. Because any father that sees their son is interested in what they do, they're gonna they're just gonna take full advantage. They're gonna give them everything they can handle. But there are a lot of people that don't come from the trades, or their parents don't come from the trades, or they don't support that as a career path. And my advice would be for someone interested at a younger age or at any age really, start by refinishing a project. It's something that you can do pretty affordable, and it's something you can do at home. Uh, go to let's say a thrift store, like go to a Goodwill, find yourself a table, and you're gonna get a used table for cheap. You go to yourself to the hardware store, get some sandpaper, get some spray paint, get some stain, and experiment. Because then at least the only investment that you're really making is it's minimal and financially, but it's time, and eventually it's going to be learning how to do something the right way or how not to do it next time.
Right.
And I think that is one of the things that I started with, where I did exactly that. I bought a garage sale table. It was a maple finished table, and I took it apart. I sanded everything down, and I just created some really unique spray paint designs. It was at the very beginning, back when I was a helper and limited to what tools I was even able to use. Eventually, from taking on other projects on my own, experimenting with the wood, with the staining and finishing, I pulled that same table back to the shop. I sanded it down again. I'm showing the maple, and I brought it to life in a different way. So I refinished something the first time that the end result was one of one. It was unique. I was proud of it, and it might have cost me maybe $20. The second time around, probably close to the same expense, but the end result was beautiful. It wasn't some spray paint kid's heck job. It was stained, finished with a rub-on oil finish, and I went through that. I put my stain on, and I see all these swirl marks because of rushing through the sanding. I know I mentioned it earlier, but the things that you won't know better unless you experience it, unless you're engaged and have your hands on it. You're gonna feel a surface and say that it's sanded smooth, and it is. But if it's not sanded properly, you'll show everything will show at the end result, and you'll have to go back and do it all over again. And I did, and I overcame that, and I have this beautiful table now, this beautiful maple table with a cherry red stain, and it's one of my showpieces at home. And I didn't even make the table. I could make the table. It's just a very, very simple square table. But at the time, it was like, okay, well, I'm limited on resources, but also limited financially. Let me get something that is already built, and that I can kind of just make it my own, make it one of one. Make it very unique, and that's what I did. That was one of the things that I started off on my own, and it's I've made coat racks and shelves and um, pantry cabinets and islands and all kinds of things since then. but it was the affordable approach of just getting diving in, getting my hands on, and trying to create something completely different at the end that I would be proud of, and I was proud the first time and I was pissed off the second time because I rushed through it. And third time end result is beautiful, and there's a lot of lessons involved in that one goodwill table.
Yeah.
And that's why I would say that it's something that most people can just do at home. You can, you get yourself a small, it could be a wooden fixture, a table weight, or I guess a picture frame, anything really, and make it your own. Envision what you want to do. Jot down all of your expenses involved in it, both the cost of what you purchased used and the supplies you're going to need. Um, and you can do things by hand. You don't, I didn't need special equipment to just sand and finish a table, to refinish a table. And uh, no, I love that table. That's what I took off from there. After that table, I still have the fear, the nerves of approaching something new for the first time, but I know that I can overcome adversity. I know that I can overcome the challenges that'll present itself, even if I haven't faced this challenge yet. And there's a lot that I still haven't faced. There's a lot that I still have to learn, but the the growing confidence is getting stronger day by day, week by week, year by year. It's truly it helping shape me in many ways because I fix all of our equipment too, and I make sure it's all maintained, and I understand how every part of the machine operates and how it functions and when it's not functioning right. Um, the passion for me is just getting being hands on and knowing that I did something start to finish on my own, whether it is creating or fixing. Um, for me, it's been incredible, and I love it. I love what I do. I love what I'm capable of doing, and I know that there's so much more for me to grow and learn. And I look forward to it. I look forward to the opportunity to advancing, keep advancing my knowledge and my experience.
Right. Now, one of the things that you were talking about in terms of like advice for other people is to literally just get started doing something.
Oh
Is
yeah,
there, if you were to give like another piece of advice or even something that maybe you wish you knew when you first started that you know now, is there anything like that that you might give to, anybody that's just starting out?
you have to be patient, and you have to listen more than you speak, because you don't know what you're talking about. So it's being able to accept the fact that you don't know anything, but you're eager to learn. So your approach needs to show the you taking the initiative and wanting to try something new, but also you need to be patient because it comes with time. There's so many steps to a final product, and there's so many steps that are necessary to learn. And when you start getting into the equipment and operating the machines, I mean, for the most part, they all have safeguards and safety features, but you can get hurt. You can get hurt with a chisel, you can get hurt with an edge banner, you can get hurt with a table saw. I mean, there's a long list of ways that it could bite you, literally. And you gotta just you need to be patient and absorb the information because it's all a necessary building block towards getting to the end result. You know, you can look at any image of a piece of furniture or something you see online, and you can confidently believe that you can do that, you can build it. But unless you go through all the steps A through Z of learning, overcoming mistakes, you're most likely not going to be happy with that end result unless you're patient and you invest the time into perfecting each step. You can't rush through it. the more there's being efficient and being too fast. There's people who will say, oh well, that for example, they can build cabinets faster than me, but they're more likely to make errors, or they're more likely to cut things wrong, or I, you find a balance between that level of efficiency that's required, but then also the patience necessary before taking on the next role or the next step, because I had all the opportunity and I was eager and I wanted to rush into things, and I learned the hard way that you know I still don't fully grasp step A yet. I can do it, but I can't do it with a blindfold. I can't do it without thinking. I got to do the math and do calculations, and just there's it's all a process that does take time, and the sooner you get into it, um, there's so much of value that comes from this trade, that even if it isn't for you 3 4 years from now, just the ability to work with your hands, hand tools, fixing, repairing things, understanding how things are assembled. I fix everything in my home for the most part. Uh, fix everything at work for the most part. I know where my limitations are, but also I don't necessarily have the same fear holding me back like I used to. And it took a lot of patience, and it took a lot of absorbing information to get to this point, and a lot of trial and error. So I would just say that patience is the big word. Patience, because like I said, I almost wanted to quit when I was a helper and go work for a machine company, or whatever it was. I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad that I stuck out even through the rough patches when business is slow and you're limited to only a couple tasks and you're going to have limited hours because of it. I stuck it out through hard times, and it's helped it's helped me shape me and appreciate how far I've come today. It's been an incredible journey, and I really wouldn't change a thing.
Nice. That's an awesome story too. Kind of like on a closing thoughts, like matter any other things you'd like to share out there, and if people were to be able to contact you too, what methods can they reach out to you?
Um, let's see. Well, you can reach me at my work email for now. It would be Luke Luke at a and a cabinetsinc.com. Now I'll make sure that Marco has that for the
Description and
description, right?
comments.
Um, but for me, I have a little list here, and these are going to be simple things that probably aren't necessary to say, but they're important. Getting a good night's sleep. So, any advice to anybody starting a new career? Quality of sleep will affect you not only on Monday, but it'll really affect you on Friday. And by the time you get to Friday, and if you're only cutting, uh, uh, get limiting yourself because you want to stay up late watching TV, or you're in some cases, let's say you're going to school and you have no choice. But the quality of sleep is very important, because it's the difference between being able to be at your best on Friday, or dogging it and just can't wait for the day to end. And if you look at it from the company's perspective, they need you to be at your best. And if you're to expect any kind of increases or being paid top dollar, whatever it is, you've got to be at your best all the time. There isn't room for slacking off and you know yawning every 10 seconds, or taking a hour poops or whatever.
Yeah.
It's all necessary, but you also, the energy level and how you take care of your body, being that it's a physical job. Now, it's not physically exhaustive like it would be doing granite, but you're on your feet all day, and in most shops, you're going to be on concrete all day. So investing in quality shoes and alternating those shoes, for me, I'm on my feet at least 8 hours a day, but a lot of days it's 10 to 12. And, I have a hard time. I don't like taking a lunch break. I don't usually. I work through the lunch break or I'll take a quick break. I have a hard time with that. And I've started to notice that, after all these years now, some things, little tweaks to my daily routine, a good healthy breakfast, good quality sleep, alternating gym shoes so they're not wearing down faster, where my feet aren't going to hurt, my knees aren't going to hurt, my back isn't going to hurt. Um, it's all anything. If you're doing physical labor, aches and pains are going to be inevitable, and taking care of your body and taking preventative measures is very important. That's something I wanted to add here that can apply to any job. It's was something that I didn't take seriously at the beginning, and now is more of a priority for me. Um, and then stepping outside of your comfort zone. I know I mentioned it earlier, but I doing this podcast is new for me. Exploring the different different side of this trade that I have yet to really entertain. Now, I listen to podcasts while I'm at work, and they because I can do things without having to invest too much of my time or my thought, I can absorb podcasts or music, other information during the day. Um, but doing this was not easy for me, and I'm not used to being in a position of encouraging other people to follow my path or a similar path, and that to me is I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone to come on here to in hopes reach one person, target one person, whether it's somebody that wants to come on here or somebody that wants to get started because of this. It'll be well worth it then. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and expect to change the lives of people, but I'm doing something that's not I'm not familiar with, that I'm not necessarily comfortable with, and I'm trying to do it for the better of other people. Um, Now, besides that, the constructive criticism being a big one too, because as you're learning something new, and even if you believe that you're doing it how you were instructed, you need to be you need to be ready to accept somebody critiquing you, and you need to handle that, um, and not take it as take offense to it. And I struggled with that too. It was me and my dad a lot of the times, and him telling me things that I thought he was just giving me a hard time, but really he's only trying to help me be the best version of myself, the best, whether I'm just sanding countertops or making door boxes, whatever it is, to be the best, most efficient version of that myself there, and had to accept the constructive criticism that comes along the way. It took a little bit of maturing, and um, also a little unique for me because it's my dad and my boss. So you not to say that you disrespect your boss, but if you disrespect your boss, you disrespect your dad too. It's a double-edged sword there. You can't you got to be a little more cautious on it. But it comes with a lot of perks. It comes with a lot of perks. The opportunity that I've been given, I wouldn't change anything. And I've been told how I did things wrong, or I should have listened, or it's been a lot of errors that fortunately aren't made over and over and over again. I'm learning as necessary, and listening to the any and all critics. You know, I would like to start getting my work posted out there, and for people to see. Not necessarily in a way to market or to draw people in, but just it's something I'm proud of anything and everything that I'm able to create by myself. Um, Especially when it's something new that I wasn't taught. Like that's the most rewarding part is showing my dad something that, he's got little to no experience in, and it, like all the machine maintenance. I know it doesn't necessarily have to do with woodworking, but it can't really be done without the machines. They can, but they take longer, and
Yeah.
I've experienced all that. So the machine maintenance part, and showing him that I'm willing to dive into these machines, understand how they operate, understand all the functions and all the buttons. And there's when you open your mind to it, any task in this trade can be simple. It's just going to be very complex at first. So whether it is fixing the machine or making a cutting board, the steps are really simple. They just take a lot of fine tuning to get to the point of it being simple. So that's why for me during my day, I'll look at a 8 foot or 12 foot run of cabinets, and I have a cut list in my head. And, you know, human error, I might miss or forget something, but I know all the sizes without thinking, and I can just go about my day thinking about other things too, and while still staying on task, efficient. Um, but everything just takes time and patience.
Yeah, I would agree. The time and patience, something that you can't really expedite. You have
Expedite,
to,
right?
experience it, firsthand
Yeah.
to really grasp the understanding of it, and the importance of it too. Just like you were saying earlier about the difference between fastly sanding a board, maybe you're
Mm-hmm.
not going against the grain and you're going to be seeing the swirls,
Mm-hmm.
little things like that where you need to spend the time and have the patience to do it the proper way and expect a really good result because you did it the proper way.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I like everything that you touched upon, especially the stepping out of your comfort zone. Not only in this, but to grow, you have to step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's just it's plain and simple. There's no way of avoiding the stepping out of your comfort zone to achieve something more that you're not currently achieving right now.
Yep.
Um, so it definitely highly encourage other people to get out of their comfort zone, try new things, explore, dabble, you know, with new concepts and just always have the continuous learning mindset because you're gonna unlock things that you've never thought about.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you could say that firsthand too. So
Yeah. No. And even then, a little nervous at first, but this has been a really good experience. And I like I said, I just hope that I at least impact one person. That's really all that matters. Is I want to draw people in. I want people to give it a chance. And it might not be for everyone. It isn't for everyone. But I hope that at the very least I can convince somebody to go out to Goodwill or a garage sale and just see what they can do.
yeah,
And if they enjoy it and they find love in it and they start coming up with other ideas for the house, hey, that might just be passion.
right,
You might just want to consider finding that internship because it, I had a little easier path, but it started with me taking the chances and trial and error, and just the wanting to get to a certain point that I've already well surpassed.
yeah.
So that's been great, and I appreciate everything here today too. Is there anything else you want to go over?
No, I mean, dude, I appreciate you coming on and hearing your story. I can't wait to have this posted and everything. So, thank you guys for tuning in. My goal is to be doing this on a weekly basis and keep providing more content about the industry and hearing other people's experiences. Just like Luke said, hopefully this finds one person and inspires them. That's the one thing that I've heard from a couple of successful people is just take it one person at a time. impact one live
Yep.
at a time, and you'll do wonders for the world. So that'll conclude this one
Good.
today. So
And
thank you.
I really hope that with this discussion, I hope you're encouraged to go try a little more in the shop and get a little more hands on. Maybe design something small for your bedroom, and give it a try in the weekend. And if you need help, I'd be happy to come out, and just to be present, answer questions. If I'm sure you guys are. Well, I mean, you guys are a little more advanced set up there, but you can't replicate the experience and the knowledge. So I will be willing to willing to offer to you anything that you want, that you're willing to go get yourself. I'm not gonna force my way on people, but you have to respect somebody's desire, and I encourage you to create something new for yourself, and then go make it yourself. You know.
Absolutely, much appreciated too. Alrighty.